Begin tonight with a Fox News alert. President-elect Donald Trump has just nominated Kash Patel for director of the FBI. Trump made the announcement on Truth Social just moments ago. During Trump's first term, Patel served as the chief of staff at the Department of Defense.
Wray, the director of the FBI, and Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general then of the DOJ, were tasked with helping us at Congress, where I ran the Russiagate investigation, to expose Russiagate. We went to them and said, look, you guys didn't do this. Help us expose it. And they both doubled down. You know what they did? They launched an investigation against me.
So, Charlie, not too long ago, Donald Trump said that Kash's new book, talking about how he's going to completely eradicate the deep state and also firings at the top ranks of the FBI would sort of be the blueprint for what he would want to do in his new administration. I mean, the deep state needs cleaning. The Department of Justice and the FBI also need some firings and some reform as well. So what do you think he'd be able to accomplish as FBI director?
Yeah, well, obviously, Kash Patel has a unique observation and history with the FBI. He has been on all sides of the FBI. He, working for Devin Nunes in Congress, of course, had oversight of the FBI and made life difficult for them. But that was, of course, before he realized just how corrupt the FBI is. He's also been a target of the FBI, and the reason he was a target of the FBI is because he pressured the release of information exposing that the FBI had illegally spied on President Trump's campaign and during his presidency. And the idea that this was, only in Washington would this be shocking. He has experience. He knows where the bodies are buried, and you will not be able to fool him out of actually doing some of the cleaning that needs to be done.
In the book is Government of Gangsters. So let's look at some of what Kash has done. He has served as the U.S. National Security Council official, senior advisor to the acting director of national intelligence, also as the chief of staff to the acting United States Secretary of Defense, all during the Trump administration. So, Julie, this is someone that Donald Trump trusts. Right. Yeah. And we saw him face the deep state during his first administration. We all remember the Russia hoax. We also remember the 51 former intelligence officers who lied to us, telling us that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. So it's important, particularly at the role of FBI director, for him to have someone that he trusts.
Yeah, and there is a history of a lot of deep state, if you want to talk about the deep state politics here, but in the FBI in itself, just trusting the FBI. I mean, we have not trusted him in past administrations, the FBI in general. The directors and former directors and also members of the FBI have been leaking information to the press in order to advance their political purposes. And the FBI should not be a place of politics. I mean, the FBI has a role, and the FBI has really lost a lot of credibility. I mean, the FBI does not have credibility. So I think obviously there's going to be backlash. Everyone's going to criticize on the left that Donald Trump has yet once again picked another, conservative who happens to also be a friend, who happens to be an ally. But that's kind of what you need in this White House, because if you don't pick people that you trust, then that's when the leaks happen and that's when the backstabbing happens. And for once, he's got people surrounded by him. And I know that Trump is very much a loyalist and he believes in the people that are loyal to him. And so you know that you're not going to be getting that with Kash Patel and with a lot of other nominees that he's chosen to elect.
Yeah, and this is someone who's also faced 2 assassination attempts as well, right? So he really needs people he can
trust his inner circle.
They actually did it. Wray, the director of the FBI, and Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general then of the DOJ, were tasked with helping us at Congress, where I ran the Russiagate investigation, to expose Russiagate. We went to them and said, look, you guys didn't do this. Help us expose it. And they both doubled down. You know what they did? They launched an investigation against me, the senior congressional investigator for Russiagate on the House Intelligence Committee, and 6 other staffers. They used grand jury subpoenas to get my personal information, my banking information, my emails, my cell phone information, everything else. I didn't find out till 5 years later when Google called me and said, hey, our 5-year notification has lapsed. We can now tell you the DOJ surveilled you. And we had to turn over documents. So we exploded that into a federal lawsuit that's still ongoing in the DOJ and FBI. But those 2 guys.
Hold on. What? So Google informed you that you're being surveilled 5 years after the investigation started. Right. What more did they tell you? I don't say
anything but that you can be informed now since it's 5 years later. So as a former national, So that became that we exploded that into a federal lawsuit that's still ongoing in the DOJ and FBI. But those two guys.
Hold on. What? So Google informed you that you're being surveilled 5 years after the investigation started.
Right.
What more did they tell you?
They're not allowed to say anything but that you can be informed now since it's 5 years later. So as a former national security prosecutor, I know you don't just go to Google. You go to every provider. You go to all the telecoms. You go to the bank. You go to everybody. If you're going to run an investigation, that's what you do. But these two guys who were running the FBI and DOJ sat in a room with the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and lied to our faces. They threatened to investigate us, which was bad enough, right? They actually did it. And then these two guys would get exposed, for Rod Rosenstein specifically, for signing a FISA that was totally bogus. And we've caught Chris Wray lying time and time again as the director of the FBI. Put these guys over here for a second. Gina Haspel, who was the director of the CIA, was London station chief in England when Russiagate kicked off. Under the rule of law in America, if you want the Federal Bureau of Investigation to launch an investigation overseas, you have to get permission from the head intel rep. In England, it's the the station chief. So she allowed Russiagate to occur on British soil, where there was a barroom operation to try to record some nub into spilling the beans on Donald Trump. And they would use that to launch the whole Russiagate offensive. Gina Haspel would later become Trump's CIA director. And then when these guys got out of the administration, do you know where Gina Haspel and Rod Rosenstein work today? At Christopher Wray's old law firm as senior named partners, making 7 and 8 figures.
How is this going to get broken up? They seem so deep.
Yeah.
I mean, you just mentioned they're embedded in politics. They're embedded in mainstream media. They're embedded in intelligence agencies. They are former top leadership of the military that's now embedded within the military industrial complex companies. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's how many people are involved in this deep state?
Thousands.
How would you even begin to dismantle it?
Well, I think the first Trump administration was the beachhead, right? People were just like, you guys are full of it. And we continued to put out the truth. And years later, people are catching up to a lot of that truth, saying, wait a second, you guys weren't lying back then. People being the American public. That's the weapon we need. And you guys weren't lying about impeachment. They literally made up a piece of a phone call to launch a presidential impeachment and then put me in the middle of it by making up a meeting that never occurred. But it sounded dirty at the time. And then when we finally released the transcript, everybody was like, oh, yeah, there was no quid pro quo. Nothing illegal happened here.
To me, Kash Patel, and I don't say this lightly, is the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. I mean, you might think that having Pete Hegseth running the military is a greater level of danger because of his lack of experience, or Tulsi Gabbard at intelligence. But just as far as the threats to democracy that we were warning up about before the election, and Kash Patel was a key player inside the Trump White House, pushing for and orchestrating the coup attempt in 2020. He was trying to completely take control of the Justice Department at the time. He was Trump's top lieutenant, who was willing to do anything and advance any lie in service of his attempt to overturn that last election, to such a degree that there were many people that were Trump appointees in 2020 who were staying around and saying no, like standing in the breach and saying, no, not Kash Patel. Like, you cannot put Kash Patel as a temporary leader of the Justice Department, et cetera. These are Trump appointees. And so, I will see what happens in the Senate. But if Trump had people around him that were quasi-loyalists that were like, that guy's too far, who knows what that'll mean for the Senate.